Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Hope everyone is doing all right. This is probably going to be the last show for today. Let's see, let me check everything before we kick this off. Guys, if you enjoy the content, if you dig what I am putting down, even if you can help with $1, please consider giving through Patreon. If you want to give through the show through like Super Chat, as an alternative, there is a link at the bottom where you can click. It would allow a little Vulcan to come up and tell you thank you for the donation. It's a Super Chat alternative. So that said, I want to check this before we kick off. I'm keeping this background up. I like this background. This is my little ode to Labor Day, I guess. So let's go. Prime Minister Questions is back on. I saw the one today. It was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. Questions to the Prime Minister. Order! Order! Now, the awesome part about this is Theresa May is dealing with Brexit. Brexit is not the easiest thing in the world to deal with, especially when you have your backbench who completely disagrees with what you're doing, and you have another bunch of people who don't want to go anywhere. So one side wants to go, the other side wants to stay. You can't do both. And you don't have enough votes to get it over the finish line. And the plan that you came up with, this checkers plan, was dead on arrival. Many of the people who were in Theresa May's camp openly, in these kind of broad strokes, flailing out, the dream of Brexit is dying. All of these people falling apart beside her. And now you have Boris Johnson, who looks like he's going to make a run on the prime ministership itself. And Theresa May saying she's going to hold her spot and she's going to fight. What are you going to do, Theresa May? I'm going to dance. I'm joking. Let's take a look at the PMQs. I got to be honest, these were great. I still stand by zombie prime minister. I have no idea how Theresa May is going to maintain her spot and stay in that seat. It is going to be a fascinating thing to watch if she tries. Here's the thing. Again, I said it before, I'm sympathetic to her cause, even though I want her to fail. I want her to fail because I want Jeremy Corbyn to take that spot. The intensity and the degree to which these guys are screaming at the top of their lungs, calling a man an anti-Semite when they can't point to even one iota of real, credible evidence that the guy has one scintilla of anti-Semitism within him. Any level of racism within him. But the hysteria of this has more to do with the fact that she's flaming out. The degree to which they scream is the degree to which they believe that Theresa May is going to flame out because they don't want Jeremy Corbyn to take that slot. That's what this boils down to. That's where all the hysteria is coming from. And when you look at the polls, guess what? Labour. Labour. All of the hysteria, all of the screaming at the top of their lungs about the man being anti-Semitic and the man being anti-Semite. They've called him everything but a child of God. And look at the polls. They haven't budged. People don't believe it. And they should. Let's take a look at PMQs. This PMQs was awesome. Theresa May is getting whacked over the head over and over and over and over again, and she can't explain herself because she's stuck in a quagmire. You have a plan that's been outright rejected. You have a situation that looks like it's the goddamn apocalypse itself. And you have no answers. What do you do? What do you do? You, Theresa May, you just dance. Lord of the dance. There are people who get that joke. Let's take a look at today's PMQs. Let's flip this. Hold on. Give me 1 second. All right. And this one. Perfect.
He should apologise for saying that Jewish people who have lived in this country their whole lives do not understand English.
By the way, this was Theresa May getting her jab in. I started this a little early on, but A, this jab is disingenuous, and this jab is not even honest. I can show you the video that she's referring to. He was talking about a specific group. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I'll let her get her jab in. This goes magnificently badly for her.
Irony.
Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn. Mr. Speaker, There is no place for racism in any form within our society. On that we're all agreed, and we should tackle it wherever it arises, in our own parties as well, and that includes the Conservative Party. I join the Prime Minister in congratulating the English and Scottish women's teams on their qualification for the World Cup, and I look forward to them doing extremely well. Mr. Speaker, the International Trade Secretary said the likelihood of a no deal is now 60-40, which in betting parlance means it's a pretty good chance there won't be a deal, which means more likely than not. So, Prime Minister, is he right?
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman, we are continuing to do what we have always been doing, which is working to get a good deal with the European Union for our future relationship once we have left the European Union. But it is entirely right and proper that we should prepare for all eventualities, because we haven't come to the end of the negotiations. That means that it's right that we are preparing for no deal, as indeed the European Union have been doing, sending out notices in relation to no deal. So we have been publishing technical notices so that businesses and citizens would know where they stand and how to prepare in the event of no deal. We've published over 20 so far, and the final total is likely to be around 70. We are making those preparations, but crucially, what this government is doing is working for a good deal, preparing for every eventuality, and preparing to ensure that this country makes success of leaving the EU, regardless of the outcome of the negotiations.
So, Mr. Speaker, the International Trade Secretary says he's unfazed by no deal. The new Foreign Secretary, who's here this morning, says that over the summer that a no-deal Brexit would be a huge geostrategic mistake. And the Chancellor sitting next to her has written to the Treasury Select Committee stating that a no-deal Brexit would slash GDP by almost 8%, comparable with the global financial crash. Which assessment does she agree with?
The Director of the World Trade Organization said...
By the way, before we let that play out, that's a damning indictment. You're going into what's going to be probably the most strenuous negotiations of the past, I don't know, decade, maybe 2 decades, maybe 50 years, I don't know, within British history. You're supposed to be out of this within a few months. In March 2019. You have plenty of things that you need to solve. The Irish border, for one. And they've just said that the plan that you're putting forth is unworkable. They are terrified of a no-deal Brexit because, for all intents and purposes, a no-deal Brexit, crashing out of the EU, a hellhound Brexit, or what they want to call it, what is the name? A Mad Max Brexit, where you're just kind of crashing out of the EU, given these ideas of a car with flames coming off of it. That's terrifying. You're talking about processes that are going to radically impact real people all across that country. And he's asking you, and you have the various people in your cabinet who are supposed to helping you in this choice are giving different answers on what's the outcome going to be. Hey, what's the outcome? One guy. And this guy says it's going to be hell on earth. They talk to another guy. It's not going to be too bad. What's true? They're looking to you for leadership. Now, to some degree, Theresa May has a difficult problem here. She doesn't have an agreement on her checkers plan. She knows that this checkers plan is dead on arrival. By the same token, the Brexiteers that are in her midst want her to go either further and harder, screaming about World Trade Organization rules. She's in a tough spot. In fact, it's possible that there is no answer to this. Meaning that the only answer to this is either not necessarily a referendum, but a vote. A change in leadership. Look, if negotiations are always relatively unfair, and part of the reason why I call her a zombie prime minister, because I don't necessarily know how she gets her way through this. You're in public eye. You're pulling yourself out of the European Union. You really don't believe you should leave the European Union, but you're pulling yourself out the European Union. Why? Because your public said, pull yourself out the European Union. Your public said, we want to leave. Now, you gave them a choice, they voted to leave. Whatever the reason they voted to leave, your public voted to leave. Are you a democracy or you're not? Which one is it? If the answer is yes, then you pull them out. Whether it's good or not, you pull them out because the public said it wanted to leave. Now, you're stuck with a problem. You don't believe that you should be pulled out, and you want to minimize the damage and the harm in pulling yourself out. That will be true whether that was Jeremy Corbyn or Theresa May. There's a larger principle at work. There's a democratic principle at work. If you keep bringing back a vote until you get to the answer that you want, that's something else. This is not a democratic process. This is the quagmire that Theresa May is in. She needs to pull herself out without causing so much damage that it destroys the Tory party or the country. What do you do, Theresa May? What do you do? Not to mention you have this Irish border issue. What do you do, Theresa May? What do you do? You have the Brexiteers who want to yank themselves out of the European Union because they have this comic book version of what life is going to be like outside of the European Union. And in part, they want to strip Britain down to the bone with regards to regulations. You must understand many of these people are removed from what ordinary, normal people go through in their lives. So the problems and the difficulties that people would experience with Britain being pulled out of the EU are not the same things that they would experience with Britain being pulled out of the EU. They are distinct from the thing that they're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to get at. The question becomes, what does Theresa May want? Theresa May knows that this is going to hurt the business interests of Britain. She has to know this. I would imagine that these people have been screaming in her ear about this. What are you going to do, Theresa May? What are you going to do? She's been courting these Brexiteers. How do you meld the Brexiteers with the people who want to stay? We haven't even gotten to Jeremy Corbyn yet. This is just politics within the Tory party itself. They're talking about taking her head. What do you do? If you're going to go too far to the degree of trying to remain closer to Europe, well, A, what is Europe going to do? Is Europe even going to accept what you're talking about? They're probably not, because they don't need to. Not to mention they don't want to give you or anybody else any incentives on being pulled out of the EU. For the moment, let's leave the Tory politics. Let's get to the EU politics. Why on earth would they give Britain any favors? If you were the EU and you want to maintain the integrity of your union, do you want to give countries any kind of incentive to leave? The answer, of course, is no. How do you give them no incentive to leave? You don't give them favors when they do. If Britain is going to be out of the European Union, Britain is going to get out of the European Union on worse ends. That's just the way it is. The European Union has to take that cadence. That's all incentives in the world for the European Union to take that disposition. The question is, how does Theresa May meld this in addition to something that they'll be willing to accept? The reason why the odds for the no-deal Brexit are going up is because how do you meld this? I mean, ultimately, she doesn't have a vote, especially not on that Chequers plan. The Labour Party, at the very least the bulk of the Labour Party, is not going to do her any favors. What do you do? This is just the basic politics. This hasn't gotten even to the bare bones of the reality of what Brexit is going to mean for everybody else in the country. Like I say, I'm fascinated by the politics of this because there's politics between the Tories themselves within the totality of Britain, meaning the Labour Party Remainers and the people in the Tory party that may want to remain. And then you have the European Union itself that has a particular perspective of this. All of these entities are interacting with one another. It's fascinating. It's utterly fascinating. But again, that doesn't really get to the bare bones of what's going to happen to the people in Britain itself at the end of all this. Let's keep going.
Said that no deal would not be a walk in the park, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. The government is right. The government is right to make the necessary preparations for no deal, while at the same time we are working for a good deal to ensure that we deliver on the vote of the British people, that we come out of the European Union on the 29th of March 2019, that we do so in a way that protects jobs and livelihoods, ensures no hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and maintains the precious union of our United Kingdom. And on one thing, I'm clear. We're working for that outcome, and we will not have a second referendum. He should stand up and rule out a second referendum.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister says no deal is better than a bad deal. The Chancellor says no deal would cause a catastrophic collapse of our economy. And yesterday, the Brexit Secretary waded in to say that there were countervailing opportunities to a no-deal Brexit. Could the Prime Minister enlighten us what these countervailing opportunities actually are?
As I said to the right honourable gentleman in answer to his first question, this government is working to ensure that whatever the outcome of the negotiations, this country makes success of coming out of the European Union. We see that global Britain and a brighter future for people here in this country. But interestingly, I suggested to the right honourable gentleman, yet again, as I have done on other occasions, that he stand up and categorically rule out a second referendum. He refused to do so, so I'll give him another opportunity to do it now.
Jeremy Corbyn is not the Prime Minister. He doesn't have to do that. This is called Prime Minister Questions. They're asking you questions. It's not the other way around. I understand the reasoning for doing that. It's trying to put this onus on, hey, what is he going to do? I want you to kind of focus on him to some degree as opposed to asking me these difficult questions that I can't answer. No, it's on you. Now, that said, I would say this. While he has no reason to answer that question, at least not here, he's not going to do it. He can't do it. It's problematic to do it. This is what I mean. There's sometimes you're compelled by the force of what's taking place around you. At least I could be wrong on this. Things could change, of course. But there's a problem with... You get your people to take a vote. They take a massive referendum. There's a large number of people that come out and say, yes, this is what we want to do. And those people vote, even if it's close, in a fair and impartial election to do X. And then as you get down the line, you say, ooh, we don't particularly like this. But the other side, and part of that side, still wants to do X. Do you just change in the middle of the process? And is it fair to any level of democratic process to do that? I mean, the problem here is somewhat of a democratic one. You guys took a vote to do something. Now, a person can ask, well, is it within the democratic process to change one's mind as they go down that? My issue here, and the point that I'm making here is, the thing that Theresa May is categorically stating, I am not going to have a second referendum, because for all intents and purposes, the Brexiteers and the people in their party are okay with this. I would make the point, though, that Jeremy Corbyn also can't do that, even though there are a lot of people in his party that want him to. There's a larger point. There's a larger democratic point. I understand that people can make this argument, well, doesn't democracy allow people to change their minds? Yeah, but you haven't even implemented the thing that you voted on yet. I am not for or against it. So don't misunderstand me. But I do understand this democratic argument. And even though he doesn't necessarily categorically come out and say, I am going to have a referendum, he at the very least is aware enough to not touch that chord. I mean, not touch that hot pole. You guys took a vote. No, Jeremy Corbyn is not going to countermand the democratic will by having a second referendum. At least I don't think he is. Stranger things have happened. Let's keep going.
Jeremy Corbyn! Mr. Speaker, a majority of people might have voted to leave, but they expected the negotiations to be handled competently, and they certainly are not. And I didn't hear a single one of these countervailing opportunities. I say to the Prime Minister quite simply this: she can't keep dancing round all the issues. And it seems that...
Oh, this is hilarious! This is hilarious. Right here.
Finally challenged Africa to a dance-off. We all knew this was coming. Jesus, God, Prophet Muhammad, Buddha, the Oracle, they all saw this coming. The prophecy has fucking been fulfilled. Look at those groovy dance moves. Here she is doing the...
Oh, this is hilarious. The prophecy has fucking been fulfilled. I don't know who that guy is, but that's hilarious. Let's keep going. That's what he means.
seems, Mr. Speaker, that Panasonic have taken the cue and have decided to dance off altogether. They're relocating out of this country. Could the Prime Minister tell the House how many other companies have been in touch with her or her ministerial team and told her privately that they intend to relocate in the absence of a serious, sensible deal with the European Union?
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman, what we have seen is businesses showing confidence in our economy. In August, Dyson announced £200 million of investment in their electric vehicle testing facility in Wiltshire. Two Sisters Food Group, Bernard Matthews, have won major new contracts with supermarkets, underpinning 600 new jobs. The Hut Group have announced 200 new tech jobs in Salford. We welcomed 130 million of foreign direct investment in our automotive sector from 4 companies in July, generating around 500 new jobs. What we're doing is negotiating a Brexit deal that will deliver for this country, deliver on the vote of the British people, and that will ensure we do so protecting jobs, maintaining our union, and ensuring no hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. And what do we get from the right honourable gentleman? From the right honourable gentleman said that he wanted to do new trade deals. Now he wants to be in the customs union. At one stage, the right honourable gentleman was asked about his view on free movement. He said, Labour is not wedded to freedom of movement for EU citizens as a point of principle, but nor do we rule it out. So he can't even agree with himself on his own position.
Norman. I'm not quite sure who the Prime Minister is listening to, but she may have heard... She may have heard from the National Farmers Union that says it will be an Armageddon scenario. The TUC says a no-deal Brexit would be devastating for working people. The EU's chief negotiator and President Macron both seem to have categorically ruled out the Prime Minister's Chequers proposals. So we're now at a critical point. Can the Prime Minister tell the House if she believes a deal will be reached by the agreed deadline of October? That's October 2018, not any other one.
That's brutal. That's brutal. Is a deal going to be done in 2 months? Yes or no? Are you going to have a deal in 2 months? You're out there dancing. Are you going to have a deal in 2 months? Yes or no?
I say to the right honourable gentleman, we are working for a good deal. We're still working, as are the European Union, for the timetable that was set of October, because we're leaving the European Union on the 29th of March 2019. We will need to pass legislation in this House prior to our leaving the European Union. But he talks about no deal, and he talks about a deal. I'll tell him what would be bad for this country. That would be signing up to deal at any price whatsoever, which is the position of the Labour Party. That would destroy jobs. That would be bad for the British people.
That's what you're doing. That's what the Chequers plan is. Let's be clear. That Chequers plan is a veto. It's a Brexit in name only. You're hugging the European Union. You make yourself a vassal state for all intents and purposes. That's why these guys are flipping out. They're not flipping out in vain. It's not necessarily that I agree with the Brexiteers' position. I think they're off their nut. But their criticism of this plan is not completely wrong. That's all I'm saying. Look, I'm thinking, I've said before that Jeremy Corbyn's plan is kind of, I don't want to call it wishful thinking, but Jeremy Corbyn is not necessarily the Prime Minister, and I'm just going to say that this is a Prime Minister, zombie Prime Minister walking, and I am fascinated with what I don't know what she's talking about. Let me say it that way. This idea that this is going to be better for Britain, I don't necessarily know how, especially not within the short run. Just think of it for yourself. All of these connections that these guys have made with the European Union are going to be severed. And these guys are going to have to come up with legislation and everything else. There are some places. Do you realize that the European Union has given tons of money to Scotland? I think it's Scotland. And the question becomes, is the British government going to replenish that money that the European Union was given to replenish Scotland? Like, it's not as simplistic as we are now our own distinct thing. There's 30, 40 years of interactions between these guys, between legislations and infrastructure, that makes Britain part of the European Union, that is going to be severed. It is not as easy as ripping them guys apart. And this goes doubly for business interests that will no longer have the capacity to go to and from across the border in the way that they were able to do so prior. This doesn't even touch Ireland. What are you going to do about Ireland? What are you going to do about Ireland? Let's let her keep going. This is almost done.
Yesterday, the Brexit Secretary admitted there had been some slippage. Today, Lord King condemned the incompetence of the preparation, saying it beggars belief that the sixth biggest economy in the world should get itself into that position. The Prime Minister has repeatedly said that no deal is better than a bad deal. But no deal is a bad deal. And everyone from the CBI to the TUC to her own Chancellor are telling her the same thing. The Chequers proposal is dead, already ripped apart by her own MPs. When will the Prime Minister publish a real plan that survives contact with her cabinet and with reality? Those are, of course, two very separate concepts. When will we get proposals that put jobs and the economy ahead of the survival of herself and her own government?
We have published a plan that we are discussing with the European Union that ensures that we deliver on the vote of the British people, that ensures that we bring an end to free movement, that we come out of the CAP, come out of the common fisheries policy, no longer send vast amounts of money to the EU every year, no longer have the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice here in this country, that we don't have a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and we don't have a border between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. What I'm doing is negotiating a Brexit deal for Britain. I'm making sure that the economy works for everyone. I'm building a stronger, fairer country. What is the right honourable gentleman doing? He's trying to change his party so anti-Semites can call the creation of Israel racist. And he should be ashamed of himself.
That's despicable. That's despicable. That's utterly despicable. You're trying... Theresa May has problems. Those problems essentially begin and end with this idea of Brexit and how she's going to meld these wings of her party that for the most part can't see eye to eye on anything. And not only not able to see eye and eye from the standpoint of just coming up with a plan for Brexit, not even able to get it out of her own party, let alone the country itself. Meaning, like Jeremy Corbyn said, the plan can't even survive contact with your party, let alone bringing it up for some level of a vote. And even beyond bringing it up for a vote within the UK, you still also need to get it to the point of the European Union. How are you going to solve Brexit? That's what it boils down to. And trying to bring up this stuff with anti-Semitism. Look, Jeremy Corbyn needs to address the anti-Semitism thing head on. And I understand that he may deal with this in the press and everything else, and I understand that it hasn't necessarily taken its hit on him from the standpoint of polling. There are various factions within the UK that don't want to see him prosper. And part of the hysteria that these guys are taking on is because they believe that that woman is about to collapse, or at the very least her prime ministership is about to collapse. So, questions to the Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn. I think Jeremy Corbyn did a damn awesome job in this one. Let's see who's here. Oh wow, we have many people here. What empire? Low blow? Yeah, I think it was a low blow. But it's politics. It's UK politics. They had a better EU once. I prefer the original over this one. Me too. Would be great, but that's not the way capitalism works. To go back and look at Corbyn's rhetoric a year back and now, again, this is my brief citation. So countries can... Alright, you guys are going too fast. I just woke up, I'm behind the news. Yeah, I'm behind. Well, I'm not behind on the news, but there's a few stories that I want to do. And I saw this one this morning, and I thought he did a damn awesome job. So I wanted to show it. Alright, I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. And of course, you can always support through Patreon. Thanks, everyone.